Okay, so we're going to get started on solving systems of linear inequalities. So we've already graphed some just basic inequalities, just single inequalities. So we're going to be doing systems now. And remember, a system is two or more. Last time it was equations, now we're doing inequalities. So you should have this paper in front of you. It says solving systems of inequalities at the top. So the directions are to sketch the solution of each of the inequalities, or each system of inequalities. There's a front and there's a back. So I'm going to do a couple with you. I'll do number one with you, and then I'll do one on the back with you. So I have y is less than or equal to negative x minus 2, and I have y is greater than or equal to negative 5x plus 2. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to rewrite them as equations. So this one as an equation is y equals negative x minus 2 and y equals negative 5x plus 2. So I'm going to graph my first one and my second one, but graph them as inequalities. So if we focus on the first one, it is a less than or equal to. So I know it's going to be a solid line. So my y-intercept is negative 2. My slope is negative 1. So down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. Down 1, right 1. And remember, negative 1 is the same thing as negative 1 over 1 or positive 1 over negative 1. So I could keep going up like this just to extend it. So with your ruler, hopefully, if you don't have one, grab one or a straight edge. I'm going to connect my dots. Remember, you only have to do 2 dots to create a line. I just did them all the way across so that way I'd have a really precise line. And this is going to be a solid line. And a line extends forever. Okay, so I have my line. I'm going to test my points. I'm going to test a point. You might want to do scratch work on another paper, but I would say there's room down here, honestly. So I'm going to test 0, 0 because 0, 0 is right there. And if I plug 0, 0 in to my first, I'm just focusing on the first one right now. I have 0 is less than or equal to negative 0 minus 2. There's no such thing as a negative 0. So really it's just 0 is less than or equal to negative 2. So I need to decide, is this true or is this false? Is 0 less than or equal to negative 2? That is a false statement. So that means I am not going to go towards 0, 0 for my shading. I'm going to go the opposite way. So when we first talked about graphing inequalities, I said just shade. Since we're going to have 2 and our system is going to be where they intersect, where the solutions intersect, I really am going to make sure that I am pretty intentional about how I shade. So I'm going to do like lines that are perpendicular to my line, and it will make sense why in a minute. So do what I do. So that means that this, including the line, is the solution for this inequality. Okay, so now I have another inequality. You could have 2 different colors of colored pencils or markers or pens, or if you won't get confused, you don't need to worry about it. I am a visual person, so if I see the same colors, I'm going to get confused. So I'm using a red pen for this inequality. So I have y is greater than or equal to negative 5 plus 2, or y is equal, because I rewrote it as an equation. So my y-intercept is positive 2. My slope is negative 5, remember, over 1, or it could be positive 5 over negative 1 if I had room to go. I didn't have room to go down. I do have room to go down, so I'm going to go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. And I'm going to see, I can't really go down 5 more, and I can't go up 5 more, so I just have to depend on those 2 points to graph, and it is a solid line. So I am going to connect them with a straight edge so it's nice and neat. And now I'm going to test a point. So I see that 0, 0 is not on my line, so I can use that point to test. Remember, you need to test a point that's not on the line. It's either on the left side or the right side or above or below. However you look at it, I look at it left and right. Some people are like, well, it's below the line or above the line. So I'm going to test 0, 0. So I have 0 is greater than or equal to negative 5 times 0 plus 2. 0 is greater than or equal to 0 plus 2. 0 is greater than or equal to 2. So I need to decide, is this a true statement? If I said 0 is greater than or equal to 2, you would tell me that's not true. It's a false statement. So that means that when I shade, I don't want to go towards 0, 0. I want to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to do a different shading. So maybe like a squiggle. Since I'm using a different color, it doesn't really matter, but if you're using pencil on both of them, it kind of does matter. And you'll see why. And I'm going to kind of make it like my hair. It's red and beautiful. Okay, so that means that this whole thing is the solution to this inequality, but I'm looking for a solution to the system of inequalities. So I'm looking where they intersect, and they intersect at these two lines and everything between them. So that means even if it kept going, it would get like bigger. But on this particular graph, it is this area. That is my system. And we're just showing it graphically. So the solution to my system, if I was to ask you, show me graphically what the solution is, that is enough information. Like I would be able to see it. But you still have to go through and test it in order to do that. Okay? So this is how you would do your answer for number 1. So I would make sure that you either use a different type of shading or a different color. I have a whole drawer full of colored pencils. It is labeled pen drawer, but it actually has colored pencils. So if you need to get that now. Let's flip it over and go to the back. And let's do number 7. So 7, 8, and 9 are a little bit different. They're not written all in slope-intercept form, so you're going to have to change them to slope-intercept form. And also, there's not as much workspace, so you probably are going to need an extra piece of paper in order to do that, change it to slope-intercept form. So if you need to get out a scratch piece of paper, do that now. While I do mine, pause the video if you need to. I have my scratch paper. So I'm going to rewrite the ones that are not in slope-intercept form. So remember that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to look and see which ones are in that form. I can quickly see that the first one is not. That's in standard form. So I have 4x plus y is less than 2. Okay, so I need to get the y isolated. So I'm going to take a 4x away and a 4x away. And I have y is less than 2 minus 4x. But technically that's still not in slope-intercept form, so I need to flip these. So I still have y is less than, and I'm putting this whole thing, the minus goes with the 4x, because it's saying I'm taking away 4x, it's a negative 4x, so I'm going to put negative 4x, and the sign in front of the 2 is an invisible positive sign, so plus 2. So now that is in slope-intercept form. So this is the equation, or the inequality, that I'm going to be graphing. And if I look here, I have y is greater than negative 2. That is in slope-intercept form, even though it feels like it's not. That means that y is greater than 0x's minus 2. 0 times x is just 0. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this over here so I can move my scratch paper out of the way. So I have y is greater than negative 4x plus 2. Okay, so now we have 2 inequalities in slope-intercept form to work with. So when we first started, we did it, or we rewrote every time in just slope-intercept form without the inequality. I have been doing this long enough, I don't need to, and I'm pretty confident that you guys can do it without rewriting it into slope-intercept form, but don't worry if you need to. Remember that this is the same thing as y equals negative 4x plus 2 when we're graphing it, not when we're shading it, because an equation does not have shading. And this is the same thing as y equals negative 2 only when we're graphing. So I'm going to graph the first one, and before I even graph, because I don't want to accidentally do a solid line when I'm not supposed to, I'm going to check that this is less than, so it's not or equal to, so that means it's not a solid line, so I'm going to make sure I do a dotted line. So the first step is my y-intercept, which is plus 2, and then I have a slope of negative 4, so it can be either negative 4 over 1 or positive 4 over negative 1. Okay, so I can see that I can't really go up 4 unless I was off the graph, so I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and right 1. And I can't really go down 4 without going off the graph. So I have 2 points, plenty to sketch a line as long as I have a straight edge. If I didn't, it would probably be kind of a messy line, not perfect. So remember, it's dotted. Make sure you pay attention to that, because there have been so many times where I've had to erase a line because I didn't dot it when I was supposed to. Okay, so I have my line, and now I need to decide which way to shade. So I'm going to plug in 0, 0 because it is right here, and so it's not on my line. So I have just plug it into your original one. You could plug it in here, but I like to use the originals just so I don't make any mistakes. So I have 4 times 0 plus 0 is less than 2. 0 plus 0, because 4 times 0 is 0, is less than 2, and 0 plus 0 is 0, so 0 is less than 2, which is true. So since it's true, I'm going to head toward that point that I'm testing. I like to plot that point just so I can remember which direction. So I know I'm going this way. And since I have different colors, I could just do this. If you don't have different colors, remember to use like a different type of shading. Okay, so first one done. I'm gonna check mark it so I know. Next is y is greater than negative 2. I'm gonna graph it as y equals negative 2. So that means I'm on the y. This y equals and x equals for some reason like throw people off. So when it says y equals, I'm looking at the y-axis, and I'm gonna go to negative 2, which is right here. And that means that anything that I plug in is going to be on the y is negative 2, so it's a horizontal line. Y equals, or y just a constant, are horizontal. X equals are vertical, because they pass through the x-axis. So it is a dotted line, and it is going to go straight through there. Basically, you could just trace that line that's already given to you, but remember it's dotted, so I'm going to use my straight edge just kind of as a guide. Don't forget my arrows. Okay, now I'm going to test. I'm still going to use 0, 0 because 0, 0 is not on the line. So I have this, so 0 is greater than negative 2. I don't have an x to plug into it. And even if I did, like if I plugged it into this one, 0 times 0 is 0 times minus 2, sorry, is the same thing as this. So 0 is greater than negative 2, which is true. So I'm going to shade up toward what I just tested. So I'm doing it kind of lightly just because I don't want it to overpower that blue. Okay, so that means that my solution is this, not including the lines because they're dotted, and everything up if it kept going that way. Okay, so what you're expected to do is complete this assignment, staple it into your notebook. Next week we're going to start on word problems that involve these. We did a little preview of word problems, but you're going to be expected to write them, graph them, all that. So finish 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 2, 3, 4. Don't be jerks to the sub, and hopefully I have a good report from you guys when I come back.